board. And so I want to start off with your first season as a head coach at Rowan. You took over for John Bunting. You had, D2 playing experience, won a national championship. What, if anything, did you change to really take Rowan from what Coach Bunting was doing and really make it your own and have all those appearances like right away?
Yeah, I remember the very first meeting when I took over. I had recruited all those kids. And that was one of the things I did. And so John had that larger than life personality. And so I think they were all really nervous. Like, JB's leaving. Like, what's going on?
Right.
Like, okay, like, guys, remember, who recruited all of you? I did. Who's had a really good offense and who's been the offensive coordinator? I've been. We're gonna be fine. And you almost could see a collective like, yeah, you're right. We're gonna be fine. And but I can remember, I mean, I got that job late and I was pretty young. I was 34. And so there wasn't a lot of confidence that, hey, you're gonna, take this great run. It was more like, hey, it's late. There's no one else to hire. We're gonna give you a 1-year deal. See if you can do it. And so I can remember that very first game playing. It was Newport News, down there, and I might have been a little geeked up for that game. I knew the I knew the importance of getting off to a good start, and I knew the importance of that year. Pretty much it was a make or break year for me. I was getting one shot at it, and so we obviously went and played for the national championship against Mountain Union that year and lost in a close one. And then obviously from that point forward, and that was a big year also because Glassboro had just officially changed to Rowan.
Right.
And so, they were really excited to get the national press. We're on national television and you get a chance to, talk about the fact that there's a transformation at Glassboro State. Hank Rowan gave $100 million for the school and for an engineering program. And now we're changing to Rowan University. So I know the university was really excited about that.
And that's so cool to hear how you had a make it or break it year right
Yeah.
off the bat, and your changes obviously led to a lot of success. But obviously, with success comes preparation. Now, out of all those five Stag Bowls that you played again or played in, coached in, and I know you're on record saying the Pacific Lutheran one was very difficult to prepare for. Which one would you say was the hardest to prepare for?
Yeah. So the first one, when we played Mount Union in '93, um, you just didn't know any better, you know?
Mhm.
And you just went in there and we had a really good team. They had a really good team. We went back and forth. And um, but that Pacific Lutheran where we had beaten Mount Union to break the longest win streak in the history of college football. And then you have the long ride home because we did it, we beat them at Mount Union. And then you have to drive back on the bus and you probably get home Sunday, whatever, 2, 3 in the morning. And understand there's only two full-time coaches. Um,
Wow.
so it was just the two, it was two of us, and everybody else was part-time at Glassboro, now then Rowan. Um, because like they just had the budgets for that. Like Mountain Union probably had 7 full-time coaches. Pacific Lutheran probably had 7 full-time coaches. We had 2. And so a majority of my guys were high school teachers who already used up all their vacation time, already used up all their sick days. And so you talk about tough to prepare. These guys are getting there at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And like, you have to have a sort of a template of, okay, this is what we're doing. You get them caught up with what you're doing. And then you had to get the players in. You had to get the players, in their meetings. And then you went out and practice. So that one was really difficult also because no one could let that Mount Union win go. I mean, not us as players or coaches or players, but the media. And we're down at the banquet the night before, and we're getting ready to play a national championship game. And all anyone wants to talk about, not us, but the media, was about beating Mount Union. It was almost a foregone it was already like a destiny that we were going to win the national championship. It's like, wait a minute, like we
Still got
got
to
a
play
pretty
the
good team.
game.
We got a pretty good team to play. And and so that was so brutal because I don't want to say we weren't prepared, but you could see there just so many distractions, that went into that, before that game. And so that was really a tough one to swallow. Interesting, I'm here in Philadelphia now, and I get a phone call 2 days before the Super Bowl, and it's Nick Sirianni.
Oh my gosh.
And um, Coach wanted to talk about, like, and I had just gone on social media and predicted, that the Eagles were going to win. And understand, I have a vested relationship in both places. I was the last coach of the Philadelphia Eagles with Dick Vermeil when he was the head coach, and then when Marion Campbell took over, they re-signed me, and I was down last cut again. And then Brett Veach, the general manager for the Chiefs, worked for me at Delaware.
Oh
And
yeah.
then the wide receiver coach, Joe Blairmeyer, played for me at Delaware. Matt Nagy's a good friend who was the O coordinator. I recruited Andy's kid to Delaware. So I know all those guys with the Chiefs too. So I said, Coach, it's like 2 days before the game. You have a Super Bowl. Shouldn't you be back to work? He goes, we're ready to go. But he was just so interested because he was at that 93 national championship game
Hmm.
because his brother played wide receiver for Mount Union.
Right.
And we sort of shut him down that game. And then he was on the team in 99 when we broke the longest win streak in history of college football. And I think it might have been the only loss that he ever had as a college player. So he just wanted to know what happened to, like, how'd you get it going and what happened and those kind of things. So yeah, it was kind of interesting getting that phone call 2 days before the Super Bowl.
And when you talk about the travel, um, I think I read somewhere that Salem was just 10 miles too close and you guys had to take buses everywhere. I
Yeah.
heard of some like 9 hour bus rides turning into 20 hours because of
Oh
weather.
yeah, no, we had some brutal travel down because you never could tell on that corridor going down. I think it's 95 we had to take down. And so it just, and sometimes you get weather and sometimes you just get the traffic and again, you have to understand we didn't have operations people. We were setting up the bus trip.
Oh man,
That's one of the things we did.
on top of
Okay,
two
who's
full-time
who's all
coaches.
going? Who's sitting on what bus? Okay, now you're taking the families. Okay, we're gonna rent the Winnebagos, put the families in the Winnebagos to drive down. Um, yeah, it was a lot of moving parts. And again, you have two full-time guys, um, along with um, a bunch of part-time guys, and not only are you preparing for a game, you're also doing all the logistics because you're your own operations person. You're your own, travel, agent. So yeah, I mean, I think when we got that deep into the playoffs, it was definitely a major disadvantage because of the lack of support we had in terms of the number of coaches we had.
And how far college football has come these days, right?
Yeah.
Um, my next question is in 93 and in 96, if my memory serves me correctly, you both had leads going into late third quarter or halftime. Um, I guess, did you feel at any point in those two games like you were starting to turn the tide, or just kind of take me through what you felt at those two?
96. Who was 96? Do you remember? Was that Mount Union again, or was
It
that
was Mount Union.
okay?
I think it was
Yeah, yeah,
24
yeah,
20.
yeah. And again, I think like we knew like playing in that game, it was going to come down to the end. You know, in terms of like there was going to be no layups. Like you're going to battle, all the way to the end, especially with how good the teams were from that region. Um, so and I don't ever remember saying like we have this thing. I remember I later went to Delaware, won a national championship there in 2003, and we're up 40-0, and I'm still not convinced we're going to win the national championship because I lost five in a row,
Right.
or well five national championship games, and so like I remember like those experiences of losing those at Rowan. I mean, it almost damages you. It's like one of those things where you're so proud of the season you had because there's only two teams at the very end.
Right.
But at the same time, like not being able to get that ring for your kids, something they'll have forever. That's sort of devastating. And I told a story to my Sam Houston team when we won the national championship, there. the night before my night before talk, and I said that I got a chance to speak at Michigan um, for a clinic, and I always wanted to see the big house. So after the clinic was over, I walked into the big house and I looked around just to see the enormity of it. And I said, and I looked up and I saw this banner, and it said 1901 national champions. I thought, wow, pretty cool. 1901, they were national champions. Then I see another one, 1902 national champions. Then I see another one, 1903 national champions. Then I see another one, 1904 national champions. I said, and the amazing thing to me wasn't the fact they won four straight national championships. The amazing thing to me is 100 years later, they're still celebrating those national championships. And I told the team it's immortality. And it's actually on our ring. Our national championship ring on the back has immortality on the back of it because that's what it is. It's forever. It's beyond your time on this earth. I mean, they'll always have those banners, always will be celebrating those teams. And so we knew the importance of, getting that last win. And I don't think we ever choked. I think it was more of a manpower issue where you just always felt like at the end with two full-time coaches and the rest of the guys part-time and them showing up at 3 o'clock in the afternoon because they had no more, time that they could take off from their jobs.
Right.
You always felt like, and you only had the week. You didn't have like 2 weeks to prepare or anything like that because it's literally you played the game and you go play the national championship right after. You always felt that, you did your best and, you know, just not having enough manpower really sort of put you in harm's way.
And I'm glad you brought up how you brought in your family because that was actually part of my next question, which it is kind of a longer one. So hang with me on this one.
Sure.
Um, the media often labeled you guys as the Buffalo Bills at D3. Even Todd Christensen said it on the pregame in '99. How did that sit in your locker room, especially when you were managing, the controversies with, I believe it was Jose Gonzalez and the drug raids? And was there a secret to your personal resiliency? And what effect did that whole era, I guess, of Rowan have on your family and watching you go through that emotional roller coaster?
Yeah. So the effect it had on my family was less about the wins and the losses in terms of like that last game, and it was just more of the amount of time I was away from my family. I'm blessed to still have a family. I have 40 years of marriage this past year, and I know the damage I did living in the office. I mean, think about it. I was the head coach. I was the offensive coordinator. I was the quarterback coach. I was the strength coach. I was the academic advisor. I recruited every single one of those kids personally. And then one of our advantages was because South Jersey is a cheaper area to live than North Jersey, I would also help get their housing. So hey, you three guys are going to live in this house, and this is what it's going to cost. Because that was one of our advantages. Because it was cheaper to live in South Jersey than North Jersey. So I was telling a story earlier that it was not unusual me at 3 o'clock in the morning falling asleep in front of the projector and campus police coming into the office and say, "Hey, coach, go home."
Oh,
Like
wow.
it's 3 in the morning. And so, I did a lot of, damage to, I had a young son and daughter. And, because I did all the recruiting too, it was, go home and, they would have their day and I was worrying about who was going to be calling that night. And I remember the one evening my wife came down because it was like 2 in the morning and I'm still on the phone with recruits. And she comes down and she goes, who who could you possibly be? And she stopped herself and she said, California junior colleges. And she turned and went back to bed. So she knew, like at 11 o'clock at night, I, had some calls. Guys, hey, coach, I have this, I have that. Can you call me 11? Yeah, 2 in the morning on the East Coast. I'm calling out to some of these junior college guys out in California. So, yeah, I handle pressure really, really well. I handle like, a situation where you have like a situation with Gonzalez. I handle those things, pretty like a steady hand. You know, let's transparency. Let's be honest. Let's kind of work with the people that were supposed to help us with those things. But I did do, I should have done a lot of damage to my family in terms of there's a reason why probably no one had the success at Rowan until I because I don't say I sold my soul, but boy, I put a lot of hours in that no one else would have put in. And just one of those mindsets you had to be successful. At the same time, I wasn't looking at my relationships. And so I said, 40 years of marriage, I have two wonderful children, three grandchildren. We're all very close. Um, but that that time in our life, yeah, it was a lot easier when I went to Delaware. It's a lot easier when I went to Sam Houston. It's a lot easier here because I have so much more help. I have so
Yeah.
many more resources here. And at the other places I was at. But at Rowan, like I said, I was the one checking the academics. I was the one going in and doing a class check if I had to do a class check. I was the one who's getting the least squared away for the players. Like, okay, this is go see this person at this place, and they'll get you in the apartment, and this is what you guys all owe. I mean, that's time consuming, but that's how you had to win at a place like Rome because again, our big disadvantage was we only had two full-time coaches.
And your success, or your commitment to success got you so far. And these stories are the reason why I'm so invested in these D3 documentaries.
Yeah.
Um, I, Staying on schedule, moving to my next question is in 1999, the broadcast, it's on YouTube, even though it jumps around. The broadcasters could not get over the size difference between you or Rowan and Pacific Lutheran.
Oh yeah.
Did you think your size difference going into the game was a big benefit, or did it work against you?
Yeah, again, that was the year where we, had just beaten Mount Union at their place, and we were, had to get back late, and then we had to turn around and drive down to Salem, and all those drives were like, 30 miles or 10 miles away from being flights, so a lot of wear and tear on driving out to, play Mount Union out there, then coming back, and then, doing that whole thing. But you got a little concerned when you saw them come out and warm up because they're doing backflips and they're tremendously athletic.
Holy
Like they
cow.
they didn't come out in gear. They came out in their sweats. So their whole warm up was like in their sweatsuits. And just the way they moved and how athletic they were, um, you just go, okay, this is this is going to be an interesting game because I don't think we've seen a team that athletic before, in terms of just the way they moved around. And like I said, I just think we were so exhausted from the whole trip out to Mount Union, the trip back, and then all the um, dialogue about beating Mount Union, break the longest win streak in history of college football, and all those things. It was like, yeah, we have a game to play. So I would say it was a perfect storm, but boy, there was a lot of factors that went against you, and I think it made it really hard to win that football game.
In that game specifically, I believe you had a freshman starting Mike Worker. Is that correct?
Yep.
Now, if my memory serves me right, you had a senior transfer ahead of him, and he got hurt. And late in the game, there's obviously some frustration coming from Mike, where he came over to the sideline and threw his helmet. Do you remember what you may have said to him in that moment?
Yeah, I don't handle those moments really well. Like, to me, there's a way that you conduct yourself. And we don't throw our helmets. Like, you will find out very quickly, like the wrath of Casey Keeler, if we're doing those kind of things. That's not how you represent the program.
Right.
And Mike was young, a little mature. Um, and so yeah, I don't remember what I said, but I'm sure I grabbed him and I explained to him that, not only does he represents himself, but he also represents his whole university. And that's not how we're going to conduct ourselves. So I don't remember that specific incident, but I'm sure it happened, and I'm sure I know how I handled it because those things they don't happen. I'm on them pretty quickly in terms of representing the institution the right way.
Understood. Yeah, and I have that clip, but I don't know how to put it up here in Zoom. So maybe I'm the technological troubled one here. I have another question going back to your first Stag Bowl. Um, you get to play Mount Union in '93, and there's a sideline report by Holly Rowe of all people, saying that the night before, because your 4 games leading or 3 games leading up to the Stag were all played in the worst, like mud bowls, rain, and everything.
Yeah.
You held a practice indoors the night before. Do you have any, second thoughts about that?
Yeah, no, no, and I don't remember all that, but I do remember. I think we played Washington Jefferson,
Yes.
um, and I remember we drove by the field. I think it was on a Friday. I think it was a Saturday game, and they had their sprinklers on,
What?
and it's pouring down rain. So that they want a muddy track because we're fast. We got lots of speed, and we never even practiced on the game field during warmups. They had an area like a little park almost next to the game field that we warmed up with, and their team warmed up with and warmed up on. And their fans were like right next to us. I mean, they're like their fans could almost touch us. That's how close, because that's where all the fans tailgated.
Oh my God.
And I remember them making some comments about some of my black players that they probably shouldn't have made. And I remember that our team was pretty motivated. And it was a great battle back and forth. And we, like, it just was like the mud and rain didn't bother us. Like, we threw and caught pretty well, and we ran our routes pretty clean. And, we beat a really good football team, but we were highly motivated. But yeah, I remember I think my one of two only personal fouls in my career. The second one was in a rivalry game against Stephen F. Austin because they had changed the rule where you couldn't protest a call by coming out in the field at all. And I came out on the field, and a female official who was a friend of mine, she threw the flag on me. She goes, "Case, like that's the new rule." I said, I know, I know. So I remember that one, but this one, I there was a bad call at the end of the half, and Steve Tucker, my offensive coordinator, was up in the box, and I remember like it was yesterday. He knows I'm upset, and he knows I'm giving the referees a hard time, and he's like, "Just don't cuss him, just don't cuss him, just don't." And I might have said a couple things I should have said. He sees the flag, goes, "Oh no, you cussed him." Um, and that was just before the halftime, and we kind of rallied together, and we came out and ended up winning a football game. Our guys were highly emotional going into the halftime. It was just a really bad call. We survived the moment going to halftime. They knew I got the 15-yarder at that time. It was almost like they were like taking care of the coach. But yeah, so I do remember like that game in particular. And I think it might have just been like I think we did a walkthrough or something. Like yeah, was very big in keeping our guys fresh. And so I think it might have been a night before sort of thing that we might have just done a walkthrough instead of going out in the field. But no, nothing I would say that, affected anything.
Okay. Because the '93 game is the only one in its entirety that's up on YouTube. And in that first half, there was a lot of slipping going on the grass. So that's
Yeah.
what. Uh,
What I remember about that game was we had two great backs, Jarvis Perry and Calvin Easley.
yes, sir.
And I think we gave the ball to Calvin down on the goal line, and Jarvis struggled with his block a little bit. And Calvin hollers over to me, switch us, switch us. I'll block, switch us. And Calvin made the block, and Jarvis, ended up being a last cut with the Cowboys. I mean, he's a physical specimen. He ran it in for a touchdown. But I remember that. I remember like they being down the goal line and Calvin hollering at me, switch us. Like, I want to make the block. But that was such a great group of kids. And again, you feel like so bad you never got a national championship ring for those guys. Um, but it was those are special times. They really were. And I remember, you know, so we lose to the team down near James Madison Division three school in 2001, my last game as head coach at Rowan. I forget who we're playing now. It's
Bridgewater?
Bridgewater State. And I'm not sure if you knew what happened in that game.
I do.
So that's where the clock turned off for 6.5 seconds.
That was part of one of my other questions.
Yeah. So anyway, so I remember, being with that team afterwards, and just that was probably our best chance of winning a national championship was that team. We had so much speed, and just was kind of a muddy day that day. I think Tony Rasiopi was our quarterback, and like shouldn't have even been a close game. It was one of those games where just because of the weather, it was a close game, and you can see, I can remember great crowd there. I can remember the crowd counting down like 10, 9, 8, 7, and about 6, the quarterback got flushed, 5, 4, and like about 3 or 2, he throws the ball in the air, and our All-American safety, Clinton Tabb, aka Buddy Love, he was leading. He led the country in interceptions. He does not go for the interception. He goes for the tackle because he knows tackle him in bounds, the game's over. Tackle him in bounds, whatever, 4 or 5 yard line. We run in the field, and they're blowing the whistle, and they're pushing us back, and we're like, what's going on? Like, there's no way there's any time left in the clock.
Mm-hmm.
And they snapped the ball, and they threw a fade route and caught over top of our kid, if I remember that right. And so we get home that night, and we put the video on, and you see the end zone, and you can see 3, 4, 2, 1, 1, 1,
Oh my God.
1, 1, 1, 1.5 seconds, 6.5 seconds. They turned the clock off. And so, like, we're outraged. Obviously, this was done at their home. It wasn't done. This was like a home field sort of a deal.
Right.
And we're trying to explain to the NCAA, how are you letting them go represent? Like, we won that game, and that was a really hard one. And I remember getting a phone call from the head of officials for that Mountain Union area, whatever that the conference is.
OAC.
Yeah, and he apologized. He goes, we should have had that on the sideline. He goes, one of our officials should have had that and known that clock was wrong, because we time it on the sideline too. And it's not like half a second, 6.5 seconds. So yeah, that's how I ended up, that was my last game there. And it was interesting because when I interviewed at Delaware, they were really impressed how I handled it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of the media and those kind of things. And that was one of the questions, about, how I handled my players and their disappointment and all those kind of things afterwards. But fast forward now, I get the Delaware job. I have to, tell my team I'm going, leaving. And it was almost like an afterthought because it's my alma mater. It's a dream job that I never thought in a million years I'm going to hire a Division III guy to go, And so I'm cleaning out my office. I'm doing that kind of stuff. And I remember walking into the team meeting, and I get a standing ovation. And at that moment, it hit me. They got me this job. They know that they got me this job, and they're okay with me leaving. This is I talked about, my alma mater incessantly, in terms of my great pride in the place and how I'm trying to duplicate a lot of the things we had there, here, like culture, about being in this thing together, about playing for your brothers, about playing for the people who played before you, playing for the people who played after you. And it really, like, I got very emotional. It really hit me for the first time that they got me this job, and they're okay cutting me loose and saying, go. They're like, go fly.
Yeah.
Like we know we did this for you, and we're good that we did this for you. So Yeah, like I said, a lot of great memories in Rowan and South Jersey.
And it just goes to show, football is more than just a game, and the deep personal connections that you had with hundreds of kids. Who knows how many recruits you may have, had an impact on. So I kind of have some final couple minutes here. Um, Two-part question, answer any way you want.
Okay.
Could you tell us a story that somebody wouldn't know about, your time at Rome, whether it was on a bus or in a locker room, just something kind of fun or quirky? And final question is, what do you, if you care about legacy, what do you want that to be at Rowan in your coaching career?
Yeah. Well, I think just in my coaching career, I'll answer the second part first. I think in my coaching career is just that I was a great mentor. I mean, that's what I am. I mean, I'm we don't cut players. We're probably one of the few players in one of the few schools in the country that doesn't cut players at Temple. I didn't do it at Sam Houston, I didn't do it at Delaware. So like if you're not good enough to play, we tell you, hey, listen, you're not good enough to play here. If you want to go play, probably it's better at another school. If you want to graduate, let's get a plan together for graduation. Um, and so like I don't think it's tough to say this is family if you're cutting guys because they're not good enough, to play for you.
Right.
So I think my legacy is going to be that, um, I treated my kids very fairly. I loved them. They were like my children. I called them my kids. And that, my goal was to help them get wherever they wanted to go. Like when they were done playing, how can I get you how can I get you an internship? Or I can get you a job or whatever it may be. So to me, it's family and that I was the head of the family. Um, and that story, I remember I was an assistant coach and I was sitting there with John Bunning and a young man named Danny Ryan popped in to see us. Danny was a communications major and it was his freshman year. And he popped in. We were in the office. He had to get some classes squared away. And I remember um, him coming in and just his personality was just off the charts. Like, I mean, just one of those guys who, you just were so impressed. And he leaves, and I said to John, I go, "What a great kid!" And he goes, "Yeah, and he'll never play a single down for us." And we both thought that way. I mean, he was like 310 pounds, 5'9", 310 pounds, 320. Fast forward, he becomes our captain. He might have even been captain in that year that was my first season at, my first head coaching year.
Yeah.
I can remember, I can remember playing that first game against Newport News and stopping at a truck stop to get a sandwich on the way home with the kids and sitting there and talking to Danny. And he was a captain of our team. If he wasn't the captain, he was definitely one of our leaders. And just how much I enjoyed. And I remember I kept always with every time I'd see him, I would always remember that, that comment about he'll never play it down for us. But he just transformed himself and he was just so smart and it meant so much to him. And then later he got cancer.
Oh,
And I remember visiting him in the hospital numerous times and just seeing him battle and him telling me that, he had this trick that he wouldn't throw up after the chemo by doing certain things. And then we eventually lost them. Um, but yeah, I remember that, sometimes just things like, are so clear, even though they were whatever, 40 plus years ago.
right.
But Danny coming in that office and just his personality was larger than life. And you knew he was going to be successful, whatever he was going to do. And John making that comment to me is like, yeah, and he's never going to play it down. I agree. Like, yeah, he'll never play it down here. But what a great kid. And to see him make himself into who he eventually became was pretty cool. So yeah, that's my one Rowan story.
It's fantastic. And, you know, it's unfortunate, he passed from cancer, but with the guy whose personality is big as you said it is, sure he gave it all he could handle.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Um,
And his brother still stays in contact with me, and they still do fundraisers in his name. I mean, like I said, he was one of those special individuals. So yeah, yeah. That again, I remember that so vividly because he was larger than life. He just had that unique personality.
All fantastic stories here, Coach Keeler. We have about 4 minutes. If you have anything else you'd like to say or comment on or whatever, you have the floor. Otherwise, once again, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, I was really lucky. I had a great president, Dr. Herman James. Um, he was a unique guy. He was at every game, and when you have support from the top, it's really critical. And I know he was a big part of us getting that thing going there. What was Dr. James? It was, I mean, all the players knew him. He had absolutely no problem if I was walking on campus with a recruit that I popped in his office out of nowhere, and he would sit down with them. So yeah, when you have that kind of support, yeah, I thought that was what made Rowan really unique. He lived on campus. I
Wow.
remember I had to go knock on his door. It was our first playoff game ever. So we were playing Ithaca up in New York, and it was, oh God, 91 maybe. It was
Yeah.
John was the head coach,
Yep.
and our buses didn't show up.
Oh boy.
And so we had some of our own buses on campus. So I went over to Dr. James' house Thanksgiving. This is Thanksgiving Day. We're traveling Thanksgiving Day. I remember knocking on the door, and he's like, "Hey, Case, how we doing?" Like he wanted me to come in and have dinner with him. I'm like, "Got a problem, we're about to travel, and the buses didn't show up, and now it's Thanksgiving, and they're having a tough time getting us buses. Can we get our drivers, and can we get up to Ithaca?" And he did it. He made it work, and we went up there, and we lost in a really tight game. Um, One of our guys, Calvin Easley, had the ball punched out like as he's going in to score.
Oh man.
Uh, and what that did, though, because this is the first time Rowan had ever gone to a playoff game. They had never gone to a playoff game before. And fast forward 4 weeks, and Ithaca wins the national championship. And I think that was the moment that we said we're good enough to win a national championship. And we went toe to toe with a team at their place. Um, that ended up winning the national championship, and now we've gotten to our place to a level where we should be fighting for national championships. I think that gave us a lot of confidence.
As it should. And yeah, no, just fantastic story. You guys made your run. So, um, Coach Keeler, once again, thank you for your time. We're gonna wrap this up here. I really appreciate it, and I hope to
Yeah,
have the documentary out in the springtime.
yeah, and if you're going through it and you need anything more, don't be afraid to reach out. I would definitely want to. I mean, Rowan's a great place. Love it. I was Glassboro High School. I visited them last December or January in recruiting, and I went over on Rowan's campus for the first time in a long time. It's like, wow, it's like it's a full grown ass university now. I mean, it's really
Yeah,
amazing the little, little school it was until to now they have a veterinarian, program. I think they're putting together a medical school. I mean, it's crazy all the things that are happening there right now. So, but I was really proud of what we did in our time there. That's for sure.
yeah. Now the kid university is now full blown adult. So, um, thanks for your time, Coach Keeler. And I think we're gonna run out of time any second here. So have a
All
great
right.
day.
Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you. Bye bye.